So again, implementing fulfillment ordering. If you haven't heard me speak before, or if this is your first introduction to myself, let me go ahead and introduce who I am. I'm a senior consultant at Turnkey Technologies. Been with GP, working through GP from a supply chain industry focus since 2009, ranging from end-to-end implementations, training, and solution architecture. I also specialize in report writing, SRS, GP Report Writer, Excel, Power BI, and a few other ancillary ones between there, and then dating back 2007 for ERP implementations. So it's been a long time coming. I enjoy what I do and hopefully can provide any experience or specialized experiences that you need as we go through this. So into our topic, what are fulfillment orders? Fulfillment orders are part of the advanced distribution module for Dynamics GP. It is a new document type that essentially can fit in between your sales order and sales invoice processes. It's the ability to help make things more productive and help implement more of a flow from one step to the next when it comes to, okay, we just got an order and now we need to move it through our warehouse process. So we need to pick that, we need to pack it, we need to ship it, we need to invoice it, and any of the other things that come into the process in between there. So it adds that type of functionality and visibility to the system along with a few other windows at that point. So it's really meant to fit in between sales orders and sales invoices, or you can start directly with those, and we're going to look at those types of things. It adds some new allocation, fulfillment, and bulk processing options that wouldn't be there within your application without advanced distribution turned on. If you see something today that you like and you want to use, but you don't want to switch to fulfillment orders, there are a few of them that you can use, that, and I'll mention that as we go through it. Some examples of the process flow for fulfillment orders and kind of where those fit in. It's just a rough drawing. It's pretty simple, but just a few examples of what we could look at. You could go quote, order, fulfillment order, sales invoice. You could do a quote and an order to a back order document, filing into the fulfillment orders to a sales invoice, or you could start directly with the fulfillment order process here if you don't start with a quote or whatever, but start here and just kind of have this life cycle going on of your document where it flows from a sales fulfillment order, invoice, back order, and just keeps flowing around there. We've done quite a few different configurations depending on what fits best for our clients. Some specialized details for a customer developed process flow using fulfillment. So this was something we placed in, and I just wanted to throw it in because it was more in-depth than the previous slide was on kind of how things changed and what the fulfillment process looks like as we go in. And the benefit here is, of course, you'll see this as we go through our process and through our demonstration today. So our demonstration, and I'm going to walk through the configurations, how you would make sure that advanced distribution is, of course, turned on and part of your install. It may require a change to your licensing. So if you get in and you don't see the option that I show you today for this, reach out to us, let us know. We can look into it. Most of the time it's a flip of the switch, or it could be, there's costs involved or something along those lines to make advanced distribution available to you. We're going to look at the configuration and options for the fulfillment order document type, set up the fulfillment workflow, additional configurations that have been added in with fulfillment orders, and then talk about using the orders between orders and invoice, the fulfillment orders, and talk about details between the fulfillment order instead of sales orders to even begin with, and then the navigation list functionality that's available for fulfillment ordering in the application. So let's go ahead and we'll hop into a demonstration, back out, and get GP pulled up here to work with. Put down everything behind here. All right, so fulfillment orders. Those come into play now as a new document type in our setup. So I'm going to navigate over to sales, and I'm going to go underneath my sales order setup area. And first place I'm going to go is I'm going to talk about the fulfillment workflow setup. So when we get in and we start talking about fulfillment orders, this is where we can establish the different steps that show up in the system and how they're named. So what I usually say is if we're going to implement fulfillment orders, we're going to start with the way that these describe themselves to begin with, and then we're going to change them as they go, because all we're doing is changing the description. We're not changing how the flow actually works once we see it, but we're changing the way that it shows up in Windows and things along those lines. So usually I recommend leaving these exactly as they are, and then we can change them to something a little more descriptive or what fits better to your business as we go into it. So this fulfillment setup just allows us to name what that step is. Again, it's not changing the functionality of that step. We still are ready to print a pick ticket. So if we wanted to change that to now it's time to print a picking ticket or picking ticket print or something, we can change those descriptions as we go through to something that's more relevant to your users. So that's the first part of our setup. The next area that we get into is setting up underneath our sales order processing. So in here, fulfillment orders, if you don't see this option for fulfillment orders, then you don't have the application turned on. If that's not showing up, activating advanced distribution shows up in the administration tab. So as we're in administration and we scroll underneath the setup here, and you may need some security rights to be able to get into this at that point, but we scroll down and we're going to look for our registration. And I think I passed it. Here we go. And all you're wanting is the advanced distribution turned on. So in this case, you're looking for that option to be turned on in the application. Once it's there, those options for being able to use the windows, the fulfillment orders, and all of that functionality should be available. So this should be on and available and showing up in the system. If it's not even a menu option in there, like I said, reach out. There's probably something we need to look at on your licensing in the system. So I'm going to make sure that that's turned on and ready to go. And then again, if we're in the sales order setup and that option wasn't available before, we would have turned it on in the previous window. And now we're ready to set up that fulfillment order ID in here. So let's go in and let's take a look at the specifics of a fulfillment order and how that's configured within here. Fulfillment orders and invoices share the same setup window. The only thing that differentiates a fulfillment order from an invoice document type is this option here for enabling fulfillment workflow. So that option right there tells it whether or not it's a fulfillment order or an invoice. The excellent thing about fulfillment orders is that once it's created, the same document number flows with a fulfillment order over to an invoice. So if we talk about the process of moving an order into a fulfillment order into a sales invoice, it's not going to change the document number 3 times at that point. If we start with an order, we have an order number, and then it's invoiced, and that new document number, whatever it may be, follows through with that fulfillment order straight into the invoice. So the fulfillment, this FULORD 1027 would actually be my invoice number as we finish up our fulfillment workflow. So from there, this enable fulfillment workflow turns on the option. Once that's on, it opens up a few additional menus within here. So my CA-INV document type out here is not a fulfillment, which means that it does not allow me to update the actual ship on the confirm ship, and it's not lighting up that workflow button down at the bottom right. So in order to take advantage of those 2 settings, it has to be marked for enable fulfillment workflow. So I've got my FULORD. I can update the actual ship date during the confirm ship, which is a benefit for a lot of companies implementing this, because now the customer can see, okay, well, I ordered it today, but it actually shipped on this date. We're getting that tracking in the system without somebody having to remember to update the actual ship date and so on. And then the other part that this adds is this update invoice date on first print. So as we go through, remember, I spoke of how when the order goes into a fulfillment order, it turns it into, the fulfillment order follows all the way through and will turn into an invoice at the end of our process. Well, what this option does right here is it updates our invoice date based upon the first time that we print the invoice. So essentially, if we follow the fulfillment workflow all the way through appropriately, we get to the end, now we change the fulfillment order into an invoice and we print that invoice, that's our invoice date. So that's what that checkbox does right there. And then the next part is down in the bottom right. we have that option for being able to define and set up our workflows. So if we got in and started working through this and we're testing and figuring out how we're going to do our implementation, these options right here tell us whether or not we want to take advantage of specific steps along the way. So we'd look at them and we say, you know what? When I print the picking ticket, I don't need to confirm the pick, or I want to skip these steps along the way. The only ones that we can't step, there's a few of those along the way that we'll speak of that do perform a specific task. They fulfill the inventory, they mark for allocation, and things along those lines. So we wouldn't want to eliminate the confirm ship step and things like that, and we would see that in the process. I'm going to go today with the assumption that we want everything turned on, of course, so you can see that functionality as we're moving through. So I'm going to say OK to this, and my fulfillment order is essentially ready to go at this point, and I'm going to go ahead and save. And let's go ahead and hop into our process at this point. So we looked at the fulfillment order setups. One other thing I did want to mention, and I forgot to show that as I was in here, so let me pull this window back up. One other thing that it adds in is very similar to the credit limit process hold ID that you can establish. You could establish a fulfillment hold ID for along the way as well. So if you wanted some sort of fulfillment hold to come into play before this moves through the fulfillment process, or during this as it's flowing through, you could put that hold ID in there as well. So just keep that in mind, that there's those specific steps that you can put into it to keep it so it doesn't apply at that point. Fulfillment orders does add a new tick for our process holds as well. So fulfillment advancement. So this run right here, this checkbox is helpful for credit holds, where you could say, hey, okay, if somebody is over their credit limit and we do need to place process hold on it, don't let it move from ready to print pick ticket to confirm pick or whatever. Don't let it move through so that my warehouse picks it up and they start doing something with it. Obviously, we would turn on everything at this point to make sure that somebody can do something with a credit hold or whatnot. But this one right here, this is added to not allow it to move step by step as long as that hold is in place. Okay, so our document, getting in, let's first take a look at creating an order and moving it into a fulfillment order just as a single step process at this point. So we would start just as we do day to day with a sales order. The idea here is this is the order acknowledgement from the customer, and until we're ready to move it through to the next step, we're going to leave it in an order. And then when we're ready to start our picking, packing, shipping process, we would transfer this order into a fulfillment order in this scenario. So let's go in and let's go ahead and get our customer plugged in here. Plug in our batch ID. I'm just going to roll through this. And get a couple items thrown onto here, and let's go ahead and I'll grab one more so that you can see the back order functionality work as this pushes through as well. So I don't have this item in stock, but I had the other ones in stock. So I've got a few items added on my order, and I could leave it sit. Allocation has occurred at this point. My sales order type is set up to use a separate fulfillment process. I've got allow back-ordered items to print on the invoice. I'm not overriding anything else within this. I'm just using this as a vessel of data entry to capture the order from the customer, to reserve stock because I'm allocating by the line items. We could have it not allocated all if wanted to or something like that, depending on your requirements. But I've used it at this point. Nothing has fulfilled or anything along those lines. So my expectation is now, and the process we're going to follow is we're going to move this into my fulfillment process. So I'm ready to send this to warehouse to ship, to pick, pack, ship, and run through the process. So here, I'm going to go up and hit Actions and Transfer, and I'm just going to do a single document transfer at this point, just so we can see this walk through those fulfillment steps. So I'm going to transfer to an invoice. I'm going to include totals and deposits, just as I normally would for moving an order to an invoice document type. and I'm going to hit transfer. Okay, so this, I'm not going to bother with the transfer log, but it sent my 2 items that were in stock over here with the quantity and everything that was ready to deliver. And then the other item is only showing up on here because I did have show back-ordered items on my invoice, so it has populated it over here to inform my customer that it is a back-ordered item at this point. So it's moved in, and right here you can see my status down on the bottom right. So this is the very beginning of my workflow step. I've got a ready to print the picking ticket. So fulfillment workflow adds in a little bit of quick and easy to this. When I go to print up here at the top, fulfillment workflow kicks in, and it automatically checked my picking ticket, and then I can, of course, check any of the other options that I want to. But at this point, I'm just going to hit print, and that's the only thing on here. Obviously, I could print the fulfillment order if I wanted to send a copy to my customer, whatever it may be. But I'm going to show this to the screen just so you can see a copy of my picking ticket, which really sized up very large. So the picking ticket was printed. Let's go ahead and we'll pull up that document again. So now that I've printed my pick ticket, it's progressed my workflow step. So it's moved it from the ready to print to an unconfirmed pick. So the next step in the process is for that user to confirm the pick in one of the windows within here. I'm going to, again, follow through just this window to kind of do everything so you can get that idea of step by step. But I'm going to confirm the pick. And this is that step in the warehouse where they printed the pick ticket, they went through and they marked everything they picked, and now that user's coming back and saying, yep, it's done. Now that user has the ability to do that through this window. It's also available underneath the fulfillment window. So if you've got a user who's used to using this window in the system versus through here, these go hand in hand now. So I could pull it up through here and then confirm the pick, print the packing slip and everything just through the fulfillment window. So we could cut off the need for a user to be in here interacting with the unit price and things like that by taking it and going directly into the fulfillment window. So it just depends on that experience that you're looking for, or what really that user would need access to, or really where the decision point of is where this process is going to take place and how it's going to take place. But here I'm going to go underneath actions and confirm the pick. What that does at that point is that it moves it forward. It has fulfilled my quantity at that point. So when I confirm the pick, it has automatically fulfilled my quantities, which it would have done through the same over here as well, but would have given me the option to update and change the fulfilled quantity pretty easily through the fulfillment window. But when I confirmed pick, it automatically captured and said that those items were fulfilled. So it's doing that step for me. Still, again, it did nothing with this item since it was back ordered. Next part is we've confirmed our pick and we're ready to pack. So now when I go up and I hit the print button, the next step in my process in the fulfillment workflow logically is the packing slip. So I've picked the things off the shelf, I've gathered them up, now it's time to put them in the box. So now the user goes in and they print the packing slip. Go ahead and put that up to the screen. And I've got my packing slip as a Word template, so we can see that in here. So packing slip prints out. Now if we go in and we pull up the document again, fulfillment workflow has taken it from the confirmed pick and ready to pack to an unconfirmed pack. Okay, so now our fulfillment workflow has, somebody's taken it, they've printed the packing slip, they've put it in the box, they've taped it up, and they've moved it down to shipping in the warehouse. So to trigger that response in the system, somebody's going to come in and say, yes, I did pack that, and they're going to confirm that pack. Now it's moved over into the shipped queue. So, and we can track these things. We can go in and we can monitor these in smart lists and check how and where things are residing in the system. But it's sitting in this shipped stage, and it's going to sit there until UPS, FedEx, whoever it is comes up and they pick up the load. And then you have the ability to say, okay, it has shipped. Well, in the business, whenever something becomes shipped, that's when you would want to invoice it. Hey, it's out my door. It's on the way to the customer. He's going to receive it. I need to bill him for this. So our last step of the process here, without anything else interjecting, is to confirm that ship. So we're going to come up to the top. We're going to hit confirm ship. And if you notice, as soon as I confirmed my ship, it changed my fulfillment order into an invoice, maintaining that same document number that it flowed into. My document status is now ready to print post, which means that this is in a stage now where somebody could come in and process that to post the invoice, whoever that falls into. So we've watched it walk all the way through from pick, pack, and ship directly into an invoice pretty seamlessly from a single document by document standpoint. Now, once we're done with that, obviously we can come up and we can print. Takes me in, and now I'm printing my invoice or sending that in an email. And there's my invoice ready to go. And of course, it's sitting in a batch out there ready to be posted. Now, we've done things in the past where when a user goes in and they confirm the ship and change it into something, they go ahead and they update the batch ID. However we want to handle that, so we're not interrupting the fulfillment batch or anything along those lines as these flow through. So that's the document by document. Now, the other side of this is being able to transfer multiple documents based off of specific criteria. So where we saw that we started with a sales order and then we individually transferred that over to the next document, there is now a transfer multiple orders function with the advanced distribution. So if this option wasn't turned on before, this is the new option that shows up in here for you. And this one allows us to transfer multiple sales orders or back orders into a new batch to process for fulfillment. So I can come in, set up a new batch ID, can't be an existing one. A lot of people just like to move these in to date batch or something along those lines. I'm just going to do something a bit different. So fulfill SH. There's my item shortage quantities for the transfer. And now functionality in here is very nice because if you want to streamline your data entry, okay, we've got people that are plugging in orders all day, but everything that's entered in today doesn't need to ship today. And I don't need to pick, pack, and fulfill and do all of that stuff to it today. So what this does is the transfer allows us to set criteria and filter off documents that we don't want to include in this, such as finding things based off of the requested ship date. So, okay, you know what? I don't want to transfer anything into the fulfillment process that doesn't have a requested ship date between this and this. I don't want anything that's, in this document date range. I don't want to include anything in this specific batch because there's no reason to, or this customer, or whatever it is. So I have that ability to filter these. Most notably is the one here for the requested ship date, and maybe even shipping method if you were going in and you wanted to kick off my entire FedEx, fulfillment process or whatever. Here's every single document we're shipping FedEx and move it into a destination batch and then come in and do it for UPS and whatever it may be. So a lot of different configurations that you could handle for this. But in this case, we're just going to come in and I'm going to tell it a batch, and I'm going to move anything that's in my fulfill batch over, and we could transfer those individual documents and then hit transfer. And what that should do is anything that's being transferred over should transfer and show up in this list. That window is just, so I've got 2 documents that showed up on there. It's just saying, hey, both of these are fully back ordered. can't do anything with those right at the moment. Okay, that's great. But this window here tells me that, okay, the only things that I have out there that apply for that are in back order. But this becomes extremely beneficial at that point, again, to move things from the batch that they were entered into our fulfillment process. Because as we transfer the orders over to the fulfillment order, now it's picked up and flowing through. So let's go ahead and let's get one more sales order in here, and we'll do that transfer process as we work through. And I am going to try to cheat on this just a little bit. Speed things up here. Let's copy those in so I don't have to repopulate everything. Okay. So now that I've got things in, and let's go ahead and we'll just put these into today's date, and we'll use that for our transfer process. That way we can watch this flow through. And we're going to look at this from an aspect of, let's do things more in bulk. Let's group things together and process them as a whole versus the individual steps that we looked at the first time. It was nice to see the individual, but adding more steps to the process individually by document, that doesn't really help anyone. But complementing the fulfillment ordering process by using the bulk options is extremely beneficial. So that batch already exists. I'm just going to add another digit onto the end of this. So with each transfer, you would have to have a destination batch, a new destination batch for it to flow into. Back order balance, that looks good. Let's go ahead and we'll do my 09 2420. And we'll go ahead and hit transfer. So whatever was included in those, all of those would show up in here to move on to the next document. So we've moved a document into a fulfillment order. Now, once it's in there, we do have the option now underneath the print sales documents to do things in bulk. So underneath here, we want to go through my fulfillment orders. And I want to print my picking tickets. And I want to do that for anything that's in the ready to print picking ticket. So fulfillment orders and the fulfillment workflow add a new document status option underneath here. And we can pick up on those statuses because now that that new document was created, it is moved into the ready to print pick ticket at that point. So I'm going to hit print up at the top. Go ahead and throw that to the screen again. Section report to let me know of anything that didn't run. I've got a few pick tickets that went on here for 1024 and 1023. So there were a few of them that were out there in the ready to print pick ticket. Okay. So that's a bulk option for processing. If we go in and we see where that currently sits in the process, we should see it's moved into an unconfirmed pick now at this point. So next area is now we can go in and change and do bulk confirmations as well. Or we can do bulk printing of pick tickets. So this is another neat thing that this adds to the mix as well. So if we come in and we just grab, let's go ahead and we'll do for the warehouse, can include that, picking instructions. I'm just going to grab the unconfirmed pick at this point. So to be able to include, let's go ahead and we'll see if we can grab any of these. Doesn't look like it's going to let me. But this option gives us the ability to print a bulk pick ticket. No transactions to print. And what that does is instead of having a piece of paper per document come out of the system, this allows you to have one large document that includes all of the things that they need to go pick. And what that promotes is, it's more streamlined. Okay, I've got 20 orders that I need to go pick. So I've got one sheet of paper that says, okay, I need to go get item 1, 2, 3 for customer ABC, DEF, so on and so forth. And it would work that individual down the line so that they could pick all of those things in a streamlined process versus it, of course, being a different pick ticket per customer. So I want to show what that looks like real quick if we can. Let's try to copy this over. All right, so it's in the ready to print pick ticket. And let's go in and we'll take a look at what that bulk pick ticket would kind of look like. Okay, so come in and let's do test 2. For our warehouse site, can include a lot of different things within that, include back order, or print the back order lines, and then we want to include just the document status of the print picking ticket. Go ahead and print. This form can be modified as you see fit. There we go. Bad side of having monitors stacked over the top of each other, apparently. But what this would do is it would give a breakdown. So this is a bulk pick ticket, and it would run through and it would say, okay, here's the bin that you should be in. So if you got multiple bins, it sent that person to that specific bin location to then get this item number for order 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then on to the next bin to get item number 10,002 for order 1, 2, 12, and 16. So again, streamlining and pushing that process for somebody to, instead of going over here, oh, well, now I've, here's customer number 2, and well, now I got to go all the way back over to there and get the exact same item because I didn't catch it and realize that I had to do that in the first place. This can help that process of putting everything together in one spot and walking them through the warehouse. So that's our bulk pick ticket. To help promote that grouping process of putting multiple things together instead of having to individually process and everything, there's also the introduction of the bulk confirmation. And this window allows us to come in and confirm pick on multiple documents. So if I wanted to see everything that's out there currently in the confirm pick, I can come in and find everything that is an unconfirmed pick at the moment and confirm the pick. So as they come back using the bulk pick ticket or the individuals, and you go through and you say, okay, looks good, looks good, looks good, you can do the same thing in here. Looks good, looks good, looks good, looks good. That one down here, let's see, nope, not that one. Yep, and yep. So we're able to follow through all of those, and now I can hit process. And what that will do is it'll change them and move them from confirmed pick to printing my packing slip. So I'll hit process. We get exceptions at that point. Order must be fulfilled. Okay, there's one out there, and this one has a process hold that prevents it from moving through. So there's one of those fulfillment workflow process holds that prevents us from moving things through. So anything that falls off the list shows up on our exception report, but everything else has moved over. Okay, use the same window, but now we want to move that, and we want to use this for printing the packing slips. Okay, so we confirm the pick. We've got things sitting in our queue here to be boxed up. ready to go. So we're going to come in, and from here, we can hit print at the top to print all of those at one time. Pulls open, looks good. Include kits and components, packing slip, and hit print. And we do have to have a restriction on here. So that's the one thing that we'd have to make sure that we plug into this, that it's anything in the confirmed ready to ship, but it had everything else laid out for me, and I'm going to hit print. And again, an exception report to let me know if for some reason something couldn't print for my packing slip. Has a workflow hold on it. That makes sense. And then I've got my packing slip. Packing slips printed out here for the next step in my process. So all my packing slips is printed out now as part of that process. So we come back in and redisplay. Only that one that had the exception on it shows up in here. Let's go ahead and clear this screen and let's move on. And now we're ready to bulk process confirm pack. So now again, all of those documents out here in the confirm step. Again, we have that filter in this window that we saw in the previous window of being able to say that we want to filter based off of specific information. So if we didn't want to pack everything with the requested ship date between here and here, we don't have to do that at that point, or whatever step in the process we want to introduce that. Let's go ahead and we'll process these over. I'm going to drop one off. So we confirm the pack. No exceptions this time. Last step of the process then is everything should have flowed into my confirmed ship that I had selected in the previous one. We have a few others that I've processed up to this point. So now they're in the queue, they're boxed, they're sitting ready to be shipped out. UPS, whatever comes by, picks it up, leaves with it, and nothing was left behind. If something was left behind, we would just uncheck it, but nothing was left behind. So we would process this. Now, one thing that has been introduced at this point that's very nice is the ability to create a combined invoice. So if I turn this on, what it'll do is anybody who has a document out here underneath the same customer and obviously bill to information and everything along those lines has the same attributes, just different items, then we can combine and create a brand new sales invoice at that point. And I'm just going to push this into a standard invoice so we can see these created. Okay, we'll add that batch just so we can push these things in. And then from here, I can confirm my ship for multiple documents at one time. First one that comes out says, hey, I made you one invoice for all of these. So now we've got one invoice created for all of those different orders that were in the system. So it combined 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orders of those fulfillment orders into one invoice, combine this into a single invoice, and same thing for the ones below there. So again, that process of, okay, you know what, if you've ever been interested in combining multiple orders into one invoice, this can help that where, you know, you started out with one, and then it branched into multiples, and now you need to bring it back down into a singular type document. And I wasn't expecting any exceptions. If there was a fulfillment hold or something along those lines in that process, it wouldn't have allowed me to confirm the ship. And now all of those documents have moved into that batch, and they're ready to, those invoices are, of course, ready to post at that point. All right, one more time. And this is just, again, I wanted to illustrate the different windows that you can interact with this in, because, again, that flexibility to have this type of window versus this type of window, or this method versus this method, it just really depends on what the comfort level is for the user, how how well the user can use the system, whatever it may be, what the skill level is of the individual that's going to be working with it, and what visually or process makes the most sense to that user. So let's go ahead and we'll create one more document here, and I'm just going to start with a fulfillment order for this one. Again, with my Aaron Fitz guy, and we're just going to throw this back into date batch. Just going to copy this from previous one. Speed things up. Okay. And then let's go ahead and save this. So navigation lists, if you've never used them before, those are these other options that you see underneath the sales in the upper left-hand corner here. So that's the term that goes along with these. Those are navigation lists. But with fulfillment workflow turned on, advanced distribution transactions shows up underneath this dropdown. And what this navigation list gives us the capability to do is to utilize this window for processing multiple documents at one time through the fulfillment workflow. So very similar to what we saw with, window 1, window 2, window 3 type option. This would give us the ability to process those things seamlessly through one spot, and maybe a little bit more visually appealing. Obviously, if you've ever used a navigation list, or if you haven't used it before, these are pretty similar to a smart list, the way a smart list would work. But if I came in here, I saw my entire list, I could filter this down to just specific ones that I want. We have a customer that uses this pretty heavily, uses the fulfillment process, and they have a different navigation list set up for the different step that's out there. And we even added in something for them to be able to filter it down by step and the default location that was set up in the header. So a few different things that they used in their process. But here, we're able to come in and select those individual documents. And then we can come up, and you see in the upper left-hand corner, here's my advanced workflow, fulfillment workflow, step by step, essentially. Okay, I'm ready to print my picking ticket. I'm ready to confirm my pick, print packing slip, and so on. I'm able to work through that process just directly through this window based off of what I have checked in there. So upon all the different result filtering that you can do there, the ability to check, the ability to double click on that and drill into it to see the line items, this is kind of a nice one-stop shop to review and take care of things all in one area without having to jump here, jump there, jump over here. Okay, now I go to this window, now I go to that window. The user can find a pretty nice streamlined process at this point to push those things through. I've got my pick ticket printed out now, and now if I came in and I refresh this list, now it's moved into the confirmed pick. I am going to get rid of this little guy over here on the right. There we go. Speed this up. So now it's moved into a confirmed pick. Let's say that I'm the individual and I'm monitoring the list of unconfirmed pick, and I know that I need to confirm the pick on these guys. I can come in now and confirm the pick. Must be fulfilled to move through. Got it. Again, refresh on here. Now my document's ready to, it's confirmed pick, ready to print the packing slip, so I can print the packing slip or send the packing slip. So the process remains pretty clean in this one. I really enjoy using this one as kind of the platform for it, but it really depends on who's working with it. This is a great place to train multiple people on how to use it, where if you train one and they only have one specific process that they would do, maybe confirming the pick or confirming the pack, but it would be shared knowledge at that point. User one would be able to say, okay, well, this is where I go to find mine. This is how I do it. So that user presumably could go in and find the same thing. So extremely useful for the fulfillment order process out there. One thing that I didn't mention that I wanted to bring up is that the fulfillment orders, once you move an order into a fulfillment order, when that document prints now, even though the report type says fulfillment order, it's technically using your sales invoice form. So you can see up here at the top that it's using the SOP blank invoice form for it. It just changes the name up here a little bit for saying that it's the fulfillment order still, and so on. So you'll see that if you get in and you use these, it's technically printing the invoice form, but it's kind of a smoke and mirrors where it's technically still the fulfillment order. It's just utilizing that process as it goes through. Okay. So a lot of process improvements can be brought upon by using the fulfillment workflow. If you are interested at all in looking at this process more, a customized workflow to push you through, hey, our warehousing just is not great at this point, whatever it may be, then feel free to reach out and let me know. I'm more than happy to help everybody look further into this and do some discovery on what part of this process would help you the most.